Good morning, and thank you for joining us for SBB Live. I am your host and publisher of the Blue Book, Amanda Barton, and I am beyond thrilled today to bring on one of my dear friends, attorney Jeffrey Janeiro. How are you doing this morning, Jeff?
Pretty good, Amanda. How are you doing?
Very well. It's so good to see you.
Oh, nice to see you too. It's been a little bit of it's been a little while, but we're happy, healthy here, and still plugging away as usual. We actually have our business 100% up and running. Of course, it's a little different nowadays than it was in the past. We have everything completely done remotely.
Yeah.
Um,
You're
which
playing it safe.
Yes, yes. So and of course I'm now a scholar in Zoom meetings. So before COVID I didn't even know Zoom existed, but now I have a daily regimen of Zoom testing to go on.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I'm with you on that, my friend. So, speaking of COVID, talk to me about some of the unique things that you've had to deal with as an elder law attorney and some of the stories that you're there during this time.
Well, it's funny you should say that. One of the things that we are seeing is that people are experiencing a new kind of arguing at their home. And the type of arguing we're seeing is one spouse not feeling that their other spouse is taking the COVID virus seriously to the level that they would like. We have a case, in fact, where there's a person that is having some mental issues, um, and that individual has some caregivers, and those caregivers are saying to her spouse that they do not want her spouse to come back into the home any longer because there is a concern that if this person would go out to the grocery store um, to eat at a restaurant and then come home, that they could then infect uh, the ill spouse at the house. And that certainly is some valid concern, but it really presses to the point of what are the rights of a spouse to be in the home and force another spouse to leave the home and live somewhere else if they do not take the COVID virus as seriously as they would like. We're experiencing a whole new realm of conflict that's existing that I think could have been handled with doing some proper documentation before this type of pandemic occurred. Namely, by putting things into play like a proper power of attorney, a proper healthcare surrogate, proper documentation that details what living at home means. What if you get sick and your spouse says, well, I'm going to go out to the store or to the movies, and if I get a cold, don't worry, I'll be fine, but you may die as a result of me getting that cold. What can we do in order to prevent that spouse from going out or care for you and staying home? And it is a completely new area of law, because generally the idea that I don't want my spouse to go out to the movie theater because they could get sick and bring that sickness home to me is not a rational way of thinking. There's no ability to say you can't go out in public ever because I can't go out in public ever. In fact, there's some case law that says that that is completely allowed, that the rights of spouses, if they can't get along, are in fact dealt with by getting a divorce. The problem, you can't get a divorce very easily if your spouse has dementia. So you could be stuck in a situation where one spouse has dementia, the other spouse is well, the well spouse doesn't want to take the precautions that the dementia spouse's healthcare providers would like them to take, and now you're in a serious conflict. So the best way to avoid that, sit down and spell out what you would like to have happen in that type of situation. Because certainly the old remedies, such as moving the ill spouse to a skilled nursing facility, doesn't apply. Skilled nursing facility is even worse than being at home. Also, we're experiencing an issue where we have an ill spouse that wants caregivers to come in and take care of the ill spouse. The well spouse says, I don't want any caregivers coming in the home because they could transmit COVID to my ill spouse and or to me. So I want to prevent those caregivers from coming in my home. What are they going to do? How are we going to come up with a solution to that simple issue? And I guess courts are going to decide where the line should be drawn on who comes in the home, when, where, and how. But it is certainly something that is very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, these are very unique situations that, quite frankly, I had not thought of. So, what is your advice? Like, what have you been telling people to do?
Well, in most cases that reach this point, the problem is those individuals have not done things such as directives that are detailed for their spouse and for their care providers. They simply did a document that said, okay, this person has the authority to do X, Y, and Z if I can't make that decision. They did not give any guidelines for what if there is some sort of illness that is rampant at a facility and I don't want to go to that facility. What happens? So I'm advising my clients that are well to address this issue and to pick the hardest type of situation that we can come up with, depending on their personal facts, and make a decision. Right decision, wrong decision, at least it's their decision. And right now, making a decision is important. Almost all of my clients have come in and redone their estate planning documents, updating them, making new provisions, dealing with COVID issues, putting in trust protectors in the trusts that were not there before. That's a very important thing that we're doing because trust protectors are individuals that can help deal with this type of issue. The trust protector can form a resolution to a conflict that occurs in a trust without having to go through a judicial process, which is very, very expensive.
Right. And right now, with the court systems kind of being down too, it's best to talk to someone like you versus trying to go in and handle this in a court of law because they're not even seeing all the cases right now. Is that right?
That's correct. The court system has been certainly is backlogged now and is only taking, for the most part, very serious cases, murder trials, violent felonies. They're also taking some domestic cases, depending on the facts and circumstances of those
Sure.
cases. But for our docket of cases, everything is being done via Zoom call or court call. And we're having to take extra time
Mhm.
and extra measures in all of those cases. It is much more financially savvy to avoid going to court.
So talk to us about that proper preparation. Has anything changed with the power of attorney that you would suggest people maybe get it updated? Because I know that probably is the most single-handedly important document that someone can have. But talk to us about some of those other important documents and maybe some things that we should consider adding because of COVID.
Well, we're adding, that's true. Having a power of attorney that's properly drafted and executed is of the utmost importance now. We are also adding power of attorney instructions. So not only are we making sure that you grant the proper powers to your power of attorney, but we are also requesting that our clients fill out some instructions for them to deal with specifically COVID issues or any other type of pandemic issue that should occur in the future. I think that spelling it out for your loved ones is important because I find that even though it might not be the best decision that folks are making, at least if they know that it was your decision, they're happy making it for you. And so other things like healthcare surrogate instructions, absolute necessity. Making sure that a healthcare surrogate designation and healthcare surrogate instructions are done is absolutely necessary now. Because if your healthcare surrogate, which is the person that makes medical decisions for you if you cannot, is unclear as to whether you should stay at home if your loved ones are not taking COVID seriously, or it's unclear whether you should remain in a facility even though COVID might be down the hall, what do you want them to do? And it is a great relief to your loved ones to let them know, in this situation, this is what you should do. Good decision, bad decision, same decision that they would have made, not as important as giving them the guidance that they need.
No, that's a really good point. And, even prior to COVID with the norovirus and some of the other, flu-like viruses that go through some of these communities, it's good to have those measures in place. And it's probably something that we hadn't thought of for such a scary pandemic as we're going through right now. But it's a really good point.
And what we are experiencing as well is we're anticipating that once a vaccine for the virus is developed, what are we going to do about our clients that have healthcare directives, they're unable to make a decision, and their healthcare surrogate has to decide whether they're to get the vaccination now, later?
Mm-hmm.
Are they supposed to never get it? Should they get it in the first round? Those types of decisions are what people need to make, because it's very difficult to decide, yes, this is the first trial period for the vaccination, go ahead and give it to mom. We know that we don't know what the impact of this will be long term, but let's do it now, versus let's wait and see
Yeah.
what the long-term impact is. Let's wait 3 months.
So
So
it would
we're
be amazing if that person could tell you what they want before this situation occurs. So that's why it's so important to get it into that document, if I'm hearing you correctly.
yes. And also it prevents the lawsuit that's going to occur later if something goes wrong. If
Good
you
point.
don't give them the vaccine and they die of COVID, then you should have given it to them. If you give them a vaccine and they die of the vaccination, then you shouldn't have given it to them. It
Right.
clears up the lawsuit that could be pending between your loved one and your other relatives.
Right. I think we're also seeing a fluctuation of even more of our snowbirds staying in town because they're maybe scared to travel back. Do you have any advice for them on having like dual paperwork, maybe dual power of attorneys in the two states that they're in? Tell me what your thoughts are about, making sure they're protected in both states that they're in, because the documents are different in sometimes vary state to state.
That's true. Our clients, I'm a Pennsylvania attorney and a Florida attorney. So I can tell you that my clients that are in Pennsylvania, we make sure that they have powers of attorney that are drafted for when they're up in Pennsylvania, and most importantly, that those documents do not revoke their Florida power of attorney that they have executed for when they're in Florida. Either revoke it by statute or revoke it via the document itself. It's important to know whether your other state has that sort of issue in their state legislature that requires that powers of attorney are revoked. Also in Florida, we make sure that when we do a power of attorney, that it's not revoking their northern power if that northern power is in fact still in place. There is what's called the full faith and credit clause, which grants full faith and credit to documents that are executed in Florida and used in other states, that allows for reciprocal use of those documents, which is a good thing. The bad thing is it doesn't mean that New Jersey court is going to interpret the Florida power of attorney the way a Florida court would interpret the Florida power of attorney. There's no requirement that that New Jersey court has to find that the execution of that document leads to a certain outcome that we would find here in Florida. So quite often we have people execute both documents for their home state when it comes to powers of attorney, living wills, healthcare surrogates, and documents here in Florida.
It sounds like that's the smart thing to do, to make sure
Yeah.
you have both. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Jeffrey, it was so good to see your smiling face. You're always a wealth of knowledge, and we just appreciate you being a part of the book so much. And I hope you have a great day.
You too, Amanda, and thank you very much. Take care.